perfectly. Cool.
Yeah, that's funny.
Okay, so it looks like you guys are the only ones we have, but it does look like the attendance is kind of down for today.
And it's a Friday, people are still at work.
Yeah, good point, good point. But so, okay, so we'll go ahead and continue, we'll get started here. Yeah, please spread out, get comfy.
Oh, we'll just come right here.
We're recording,
Very
so we
intimate
just wanted to
conversation.
voice better.
Oh yeah, no problem. So we are,
I thought I was moderating.
what's that?
I thought I was moderating.
Oh, Goldman aside. Please take it away.
Okay, so we are Lost Tribes Gaming. We are a subsection of a gaming group that's mostly local. We broadcast on Twitch and YouTube and Facebook too, right? Or,
No, I don't
anyway,
really do Facebook.
but we're on Facebook. And anyway, so we're just a local gaming group. We play a variety of games. Currently, our lineup is well, we used to do a Vampire the Masquerade. Currently, it's on pause, and we're doing a World of Darkness mixed game. So we pulled in a bunch of creatures from their various lines. And we've got we put our Cyberpunk 2020 game on hold in lieu of a new game that we're starting April 16th.
Yep.
So and that is.
Oh my gosh.
We'll maybe touch on that in a little bit. We have a Marvel superheroes game every other Saturday, and a Star Wars game every other Wednesday.
Yep.
We did have Street Fighter for a little bit, but that's been put on pause too. So
Yeah. So, but on our YouTube channel, you can find a whole bunch of different stuff.
Yep. We did. We've also got Firefly on there, and of course the other game that was on there that we've done here recently. Oh, Mass Effect. Mass Effect.
Oh yeah, we did a Mass Effect that's based on a D&D 5e. It was kind of a homebrew that somebody put up. That was fun. That was a fun one. So anyway, that's who we are. Today we are talking about the apocalypse, basically how to, we're going to just kind of explore elements of what could go into planning an apocalyptic setting for your game or your story or whatever. So my name's Brittany, I'm a player. Jerome is our storyteller.
I'm Rachel. And I'm just a teller. I'm just a gamer as well.
She's a bank
I
teller.
only play one online game, and that's City of Heroes. I don't play PS5. I don't do nothing that. I have a Super Nintendo. So.
It's all good. It's all good. Okay, so so basically, we're just going to talk about different elements that go into an apocalypse, and talk about different things that go into each of those, and then if you would like to participate, you're welcome.
Yeah, it's absolutely open discussion. That's
So we'll talk about a few
we'll be
things,
doing
and then
that
we'll
through
open
each
it up.
bullet point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So first of all, we are going to talk about atmosphere. Jerome, why don't you start us off?
Sure. So, and as I talked to them about this when I was coming up with the panel, so obviously the atmosphere is going to be tied to when you're telling your story, how you're wanting to break that out. So, like some stories, for example, The Walking Dead starts you off right at the very beginning. Like if you pick up the comic book, if you pick up the TV show, it starts right when it's happening. Both series actually, the original series. I don't know about the newer ones. I think they take place afterwards. But obviously, that's going to set a different tone than it's going to set if you plan it out further. Like if you already have an existing story, and then you decide, I want to blow everything up, and what is that going to look like? So that's so the atmosphere to that obviously is very tied to the events can be taking place outside of the overall story. It's in the background. It's like the umbrella that's kind of looming over. It's what everything else goes into it.
Yeah. So like the key being, your players don't know a whole lot. They just get like glimpses of things that affect them directly, but there's stuff happening in the background that
Right.
comes into play when they encounter it.
And a lot of things you can do to help with that initial atmosphere are things like the music, lighting. You can verbally explain that, or maybe you can bring things in. Like when I used to run a Rifts game a while back, and one of the things I did to start that off, because if you don't know anything about Rifts, it's a post-apocalyptic game put out by Palladium many moons ago. I would kick off with the Terminator theme song from the very beginning. So it was like, dun, dun, dun,
Yeah, it
dun,
really put us in the mood.
dun, dun, dun. Yeah, and it's a very like I forget who scored that, but it's very like when you think Star Wars, you think John Williams and that epic orchestra of like everything coming together, like especially like Duel of Fates, for example, from Episode 1 when Darth Maul is going out. Like it's just it hits you whenever you hear that music. It brings you into that. So when you listen to the theme song, maybe not so much to the later version of the Terminator, but when you listen to part 1 and part 2, it kicks off with that particular theme, and it really kind of helps set the mood, and it wasn't racy or over the top. It was just very brooding, and that's what I wanted people to key in on. It was because the atmosphere where you're at, it's not like an anime. It's not, even if the anime is like a lot of thrash and a lot of glam or whatever have you. It's none of these
like
things.
high energy.
Yeah, it's not high energy. It's people skulking from ruin to ruin, trying just to get through the day. And what does the next day look like? Well, we're going to worry about today and try to invoke that. And you can do a lot of those things through just making a lot of things inaccessible. Things like what I was talking to them, because when we were first hit with it, was like, well, I don't know if I can talk about this. Well, it's like, the apocalypse is like not necessarily it's zombies or it's a plague or it's vampires. It's what have you lost? And you think about that, and you think about like what happened here recently with the Rona. Like for some reason, people made a run on toilet paper. But you wouldn't think about things like that for an apocalypse until it actually happens. It's like your access to water, access to electricity, a safe home. What is the atmosphere around you like? Is it dangerous? Is it empty? So these are all things that can kind of go into the mood and the atmosphere of what it is you're trying to say.
Rachel,
I think as a storyteller, a lot falls, I think, on you to help kind of present that setting to make your players feel immersed. And I haven't seen that in a while in some of the games that I'm in, but honestly, when it was happening, it really put you in the mindset. I remember playing in a D&D game when it was a horror campaign, and the setting that they had put in is they lowered the lights, they put on this eerie background music, and when certain dramatic moments would happen, they would actually play sound effects. Like, it was really immersive, and it really loved it. It was great. It was your game, and then there was another game that I was in that did that too. So yeah, it really puts you in the mood.
Something that I think, our games are typically theater of the mind. So it's all just description. We don't have like a board, we don't have visuals usually. But something that Jerome does a pretty good job at, like for example, we in our World of Darkness mix, we recently had an operation where we went into the spirit world, tracking some demons, and that dimension is kind of like funhouse mirror of the real world, and like describing just how things are just a little bit off. Like the corners of buildings are a little too angular. The colors are just a little bit weird. things don't smell quite right. They
Stuff
don't
floating,
right.
like real dusty type.
And describing like the visuals of what your characters are coming into, you know, as they walk through the scene into where they're going, do a really it really goes a long way in you know, putting them on edge and making them feel like things are not normal. So, audience members, do you have any thoughts on using atmosphere to set the tone of collapse?
Unfortunately, right now he's running an online D&D game.
Yeah,
So kind of lacking in the like actually being able to be like we're all sitting down, like dimming the lights, doing all of that.
That's actually what I wanted to bring up is because at least like right now where our medium is we have to play digitally. And
We do
that,
too.
we use a tabletop simulator, so
Okay.
that's
A VTT.
basically a VTT, right? And we have done like other you know, systems, and we tried like Roll20, Foundry, some other ones, but at the end of the day, my players enjoy the aspect of the kind of like three-dimensional nature and physicality of stuff in tabletop. It kind of makes them feel
I miss
more
that
like
myself.
Yeah.
they're
Like
actually
in person.
around a table. So
It does give
that's
an extra dimension to.
yeah, it
the
does.
game.
And what I'm now finding, because there's a lot of other challenges that I have with this group because of our history. We came from a bad DM, and I was playing alongside them, and now I'm their DM. But they're like a lot of them are not as theater of the mind oriented, and I'm actually very much so. I presented in this world that is already apocalyptic. It's apocalyptic with like a high fantasy facade on
Okay.
it.
Yes.
So they, you know, I presented in that. I threw them in their first kind of like low-level adventure, you know, from like levels 1 to 5. I'm using Dungeons and Dragons 5e as my system, and they kind of, I think, were missing the themes. And I don't think it was necessarily like a fault on them because they're not really used to theater of the mind gameplay, right? So they're all traditional video gamers. Me and my little brother, got them into tabletop gaming. And I'm also not a super experienced DM. I've only been doing this for about like 6 months, maybe.
Oh, okay.
And then I've been like building my world for like years. But like it's now at a point where how can I take that delivery of setting the tone? Music is a great one. I started doing that recently, and I saw a huge shift. They started to really kind of get the themes a lot more. If I had like a monologue or something, I would find just a snippet of music that I could run low, just play in, you know, our Discord server in the background while I'm narrating over it, and it started like kind of translating a lot more of the themes that I wanted to translate across. But also I think the verbal delivery is really important for these players because they're used to. Our previous game was a numbers crunchy, like math, combat heavy, like spreadsheet.
Which
like if you
lends
can't
itself to.
like power game your character to the max, like you will just TPK. That's just the system or like the style that they were used to. And now I'm trying to get them to engage more with theater of their mind, where they're not looking at a map all the time. Because I'm not an artist. I can't just crank out maps like crazy, right? So it's like, and I could find resources online, but they don't really quite tell the same stories of apocalypse that I want to tell.
Right.
So a lot of the questions I want to ask you guys is, what do you think can tonally, verbally communicate a lot of these like subtle themes without just kind of giving it away? Because I like the idea that, oh no, everything's happy dandy, guys, but then they hit the realization of like, no, it's not. Everything is not fine.
I think
Right.
pacing and like restraint in giving those hints is key in setting the tone.
So let me throw this out at just a question back at you. How many of your players are wrestling fans?
None.
None. Okay. So
Curious where this is going.
Yeah.
well, here's why. There's a dichotomy within wrestling, professional wrestling, where you have on one hand people who like the flash, right? They want to see all the stunts. They want to see all the tables. They want to see all the chairs. They want to see the tacks. They want to see the death-defying, high-flying things. And then there's the ones that like the story. right? One is a group called like folks who like AEW, right?
What does that stand for?
All Elite Wrestling.
Okay.
So they are the glam, they are the flash, that's what they do, right? The WWE, who is formerly WWF, they're the storytellers. Which one of the two do you think are doing better right now, without even knowing it?
WWE. I don't even know about
because-
The one that I've heard of.
Yeah, the one that I've heard of. Yeah, exactly.
That's a good way to start explaining that to you, even if they're not wrestling fans. That's a good way to explain it to them. It's like there's a time and place for this, and we definitely want this, right? Because at the end of the day, you want your payoff, but that's at the end, that's the payoff. We want to focus over here. Let's get more cerebral. Let's think about this like you would watch, like you're trying to focus on a movie or a story. Maybe they read some novels or something. If they get into that story element and they start thinking about their characters, like, I wonder what's going to happen next, or what does this mean? Like, if they ever engage on it like that, that's a way to try and bridge that. Meta-wise, obviously you can't directly equate that to your game, but just tell them, this is what I'm aiming for. I want this over here, because obviously we built our characters for a reason. They're going to do something. They need to be able to do the things, right? But here's the meat and potatoes. Here's why they're doing these things. Here's the lead up. And in doing that, when you're starting to tell your thinking atmosphere, start leaving breadcrumbs. Don't give them things to just beat on, because that's when you're coming from a number crunchy game and you're coming from the classic D&D trope of let's jump in a dungeon, let's beat up the stuff, let's get the loot, and yay, I'm that much better, I've got a level or two, whatever. I did that too growing up. I've been doing this a long time, but I've obviously found way more satisfaction and way more reciprocal fun with my friends when we're doing this over here. And I'm doing that visually to maybe to help you or anybody else who might watch this, parse it out like that and say, these can go together, but let's lean on this, and if we do it like this, I think you're going to get a bigger payoff. And here's why. And then you do things like that. Like, for example, you're saying post-apocalyptic, right? Or apocalyptic, like something big has happened. So start leaning into that a little bit. Like, for example, I don't know if you know anything about Pathfinder, but Pathfinder, which spun off of D&D, is very much post-apocalyptic. Few people know that. If you actually read the backstory, there was this whole other culture that populated their planet many moons ago. And then, the gods got angry with them. It's a very kind of classic Greek kind of trope, and just said, we're done with your egotism and whatnot, and their cultures are crushed and everything. So now when you're hitting the ruins, it isn't just some random, this guy, he had a castle over this area and he abandoned it. Like, it's not just an abandoned home, right? This has ties to something way back. What is it doing now? Did some magic leak out? This curse, start spewing forth from this item, like corrupt radiation or something, and start doing something to the countryside. You can do things like that and tie it to something in the back, but never give them the full story right up front. Give them some little breadcrumbs, and as you give them breadcrumbs, it starts getting a little worse. It's making them think, ooh, that's not great. Ooh, this is bad. This is really bad. And then maybe you threw out something over here a little while ago, right? Maybe it was a plot of land that's just, the farmers can't get anything to grow on it for any reason, right? Why? Bad soil. That's probably what they're going to think. We can't till it. It's not going to grow anything. Maybe that had something to do with something over here. And that's how they start linking it around, and they realize this is way bigger than what we thought. And that's where you start getting the atmosphere, when they start realizing there's this big, expansive story out there that they're only getting pieces from. And then that's where you can start hooking them in, for something later on, and they might come and they might circle back around and be like, I want to know more. They want to pull you off to the side and get you, pick your brain a little bit, like, well, what did this really mean? When you start getting that engagement through your atmosphere, that's when you got them hooked.
how do you get them invested beyond the mystery?
That can be kind of tough. That's going to come back to knowing your players. Knowing. That's why I said, are they wrestling fans? Because if they're wrestling fans, they're going to know that dichotomy right off the bat. You may have to figure out another way to re-explain that. But if they're wrestling fans, they're going to understand the AEW, WWE sort of thing. Another way to do that, I don't know, do they play many other RPGs?
That's the thing. I actually think I'm by far the most expansive when it comes to RPGs, and they're actually a lot more limited. I think they're
mostly
kind of
D&D folks.
well, in terms of like tabletop games, they're just D&D.
Yeah,
I don't even have that much
And they've
experience.
only played really like one campaign, like
Okay,
from
so
the
they're
bad
pretty
DM.
new.
So they have like a
Fresh.
very limited idea
Okay.
of what D&D is.
Yeah, and a lot of my job at work that I've been doing has been to try and like reset that and then expand their horizons, because a lot of them are also very limited in the digital space too. Like I play single player games. I love Mass Effect. I love all the BioWare games.
Oh,
I've played
Mass Effect.
tons of RPGs by myself,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and they don't even entertain the idea of even trying a story-based game. And I'm like, you're missing out. You're missing
Okay.
out hardcore.
And you may have to set yourself for some low expectations there, but it may be beneficial to start pulling some of them aside and explain, okay, here's kind of what I'm going for. This is why I want your buy-in, because I think it's going to work. If it doesn't, okay, great. Maybe it's not the gaming group, and maybe you'll find one you can experiment on later on, with other people. But sometimes people like that, like especially when they're stuck in the D&D and no more sort of realm, which a lot of people fall into, sometimes they won't branch. But if running a game gets your kicks, like it does for me, right? Because I really can't play anymore. I really enjoy running the stories, building the stories, and then getting the feedback back from what it is. If that's what really floats your boat, just be patient. Eventually, you're going to start finding some people that really they want that
resonate.
That they want that resonation. They want to know that it's the mindset of the open world. Again, if they don't really play a whole lot of video games and they get that, then it's going to be lost on them. But if they like jumping into a game and thinking, wow, it's this big world out there, like Red Dead Redemption 2, like I could ride off all the way over there to the edge of the screen, and I can look out over the horizon and go like, holy crap, I ran through all, and there's like all these other missions or wherever I can go to. Like if that kind of floats their boat, that's another way to reiterate, oh, this is what I'm going for over here. Let's try to do this.
Especially with the newer group that you said group of players that you have, you may need to kind of literally spell it out for them.
Yeah.
Just say,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
this is what we're going for. Like, I want to bring your guys' characters into it. And I find bringing character backgrounds into the plot of whatever additional plot you have.
Oh yeah,
engages
he's
them
great at that.
entirely.
He actually
Yeah.
had interviews with like all of them to kind of see
Perfect.
like what their character was about and do all
Okay.
that. So that way, even
that was
before
gonna be
he
my
started,
next
he
question.
could be
Do
like,
they have
okay, this is how we're
backgrounds?
gonna
Yeah.
like incorporate it into my
Perfect.
thing.
Yeah,
Actually-
that's what I was going to suggest is
Yeah,
find
that's good.
something to make it personal to each one of
Yeah.
them, and then like pull that in a little bit by bit.
I think they're also a little scared because his previous DM, like basically, if they showed any creativity, he was like punishment. Like you will follow exact. He basically
Oh,
read
I'm
a
sick.
book and was like, you will follow
That's
the
pretty-
exact story.
as
Like
a
if you try
player.
to be
Oh,
creative,
that's tough.
no. So they're always like really hesitant now to like do
Offer new
anything.
ideas.
They need to
creative.
understand that you are not that DM.
Yeah, I think
And
they're
maybe-
really
victim of
opening
that
up.
DM.
I wanna go
that
back
may
to
not
the
be
point
all
about-
their D&D only. That may be, like
Yeah.
you're saying.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a very specific case, and I like the advice of just be patient, because I've seen signs of
Oh,
them already start engaging more in this. But just to so they have a little bit of context, like the way that my world works is I kind of created a world because this is what was easiest for me to mind map everything out. It's more of a political intrigue game, and it's I want you to think Treasure Planet plus One Piece. So you have basically a sky adventure where they're island hopping between various islands in kind of like this fantastical high magic setting. But I'm not fully into high magic. I actually like dark fantasy and story tropes a lot. So the world is more fractured. It's actually set up in, I literally call them layers. You have like the bottom, which is the abyss. It's like the most like pure apocalyptic, like close to chaotic hellscape that you can imagine.
Okay.
Then there's the Fallands, which the running story is they fell from being the prime real estate during the last big catastrophe, and now they're lower, and everything about them, both geographically, politically, and resource-wise, they are viewed as lower. And then you have the Rimland, which is your typical high fantasy, green pastures, like political hellscape. And then you just have like a layer above, which is more of like the fantastical magic, like weird stuff, like I don't know, like high Norse, astral, whatever else goes on in there, right? And I'm not a great story writer, but I've kind of introduced like 3 main plots, 3 very large like campaign arc spanning plots that are kind of like competing with each other, and I have done that. I've dripped the kind of bits and pieces to them as I've gone. I'm trying to like kind of push them into their character stories first, but really it's all going to end up in the same place because I'll just build it all intertwined anyway, right? Because I'm like, that's just going to be easier for me anyway. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'll just merge this all together, and then hopefully we have a good story by the end of it, right? Now, I thought I came to this panel with the intent of like, I felt like where I struggled was defining that kind of pseudo hellscape, kind of apocalyptic setting in the Abyss and in the Fallands. And I think one of the things that I want to talk about is scarcity, and how to scarcity, how to kind of start showcasing to players that you can't get those things here. Like that's not the same example you had with toilet paper, right? It's like, okay, this event happened and now there's no toilet paper. You wouldn't really think about that, but I think I need to basically start incorporating that a lot more, because I still kind of gave them, because of the older trauma, like, hey, DM, I want to get this thing. Okay, let's figure out how you can get that, but it's really not the time in the game, in their location, because they're like at the bottom of the world.
Would you get this?
Yeah, so maybe we could talk about like scarcity and how to kind of like make
Do we
it.
wanna-
that was something.
Do we want to skip ahead, or do we want to talk about? So our next point was going to be about morality and making hard choices, but
That could actually kind of tie into it, because if there are lack of resources, that's going to
do we want to just?
Yeah, because I think they
go through that
have
real
like
quick
very
and then
much,
go-
right now they have very much of that, like, he actually has one player who tries to be like the goody two shoes, can't see anything, like they're like, oh, why would anyone steal? Like so they see like kids stealing to eat, but they're like, oh, those kids are stealing are bad because stealing is bad. Like so they're kind of in like that. Yeah, like they're very much like, it's black and white. Like it's, if they're doing something bad, it's only bad. If they're doing something good, it's only good. They have a really hard time with like even understanding that, like, the grayness of the world. They're just like, oh no, everything's
like they need
bad.
a reality check in character.
Well,
How would you guide a character like that into?
Well, for starters,
into a
I
reality?
would talk to them out of character, to let them know that don't treat the RPG like a video game.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people do that and they don't. It's out of sight, out of mind. They don't really think about it because they hear role-playing game. Oh, it's a game.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's a way for you to explore something new, and you're not limited to, mouse runs across screen, pull mallet, bop mouse. You're not limited to something like. So when you walk outside and you see the homeless, right, in real life, do you just look at them and go like, oh, that's evil?
Yeah.
Is that what you do? And kind of start having that kind of a conversation. So that way they think about it a little bit differently. And it doesn't have to be, because in the apocalypse, obviously, this is really big, because morality comes up into making hard choices, resources, right? That's going to start bringing something up. And a good way to do that is to immediately start taking away their ability to recharge or regain things like
or find water somewhere, maybe.
Find water,
there's
or
no
food.
Stream, no. Like, where are you guys at? You're in the middle of a desert. There's no water.
So, for example, maybe the realm that they're at, complete hellscape. Obviously, food is a scarcity, and what they can find, they probably have to hunt for, and whatever they hunt for, probably pretty scary, right? But if they come across a creature that the party puts down pretty easily and scarfs down because they're out of rations or whatnot. Put them in a situation where they now stumble onto a town that is struggling to make that meat. That they're all super hungry, and they're hungry because there's other predators out there that eat the easier prey, and the one prey they probably could have hunted, they just killed.
Yeah, they're actually kind of in a town like that right now, and the one player who's like very much has a problem with this is like he's tried to just basically do the just don't be sad, be happy route. Like he's like in this town where like people are like we don't give a shit about you. We're just trying to survive. Like why? And he's just like, but if you guys were just like happier, nicer, got along, because there's also like a little undercurrent of like racism, because there's like fish people, and then there's people who came into the fish people's like this was originally theirs, and like so they're like they don't like each other, and they're like, well, they should just get along, So it's like one of those things where those more concepts of morality are kind of just like going over their head because they're just like no.
To be fair, I've already talked to this individual outside, like on like outside game level about these things too, and it's not the same anymore. But they've also kind of like transitioned past that. But it kind of made me realize I was like, oh, okay, I need to maybe be a little bit more deliberate about how I am presenting my worlds, because this will be a very big theme throughout the whole campaign. Even in the areas where you think things are going very well and very like everything is fair and everything is just, like that's not the case. Because all the fantasy that I enjoy and all the stories that I steal from are entirely for sure in that like, okay, no, there's a lot more gray and a lot more moral conundrums going on. And I also want to push my players into making those decisions, because that's when I think they really have to engage with something and really think about it. Would my character be okay with this? They've kind of already they solved the first island by basically abandoning it. And I was like, well, now you're not gonna deal with it. Bye. They were like, and I was like, fine, you can abandon it. But now the fate of this
you're gonna
area
have to deal with that
is,
later.
you're gonna deal with that later.
Yeah.
And you've abandoned it, but again, you have to realize that in this story, you are the protagonists. You are going to be the ones that have to drive things, and the world will react around you, and the world will eat up the stuff that you leave behind. Like it's just
do you have
the
any
way.
clerics or paladins in the group?
No. They there's no like.
So I was like a test runner of the game, and I was the only cleric, and I didn't like want to play with his group because I don't think we would mesh very well, because I was a very much like, let's go do things, because I had no previous ties to it. So he was like, you're really getting like the themes, you're really like exploring more, and I don't think they're ready for somebody who's doing that. But he uses my character in his game because she was like a cleric, like a high cleric and stuff like that. So they kind of have like her as like a semi there, semi not, because he doesn't want them to rely on her like too much to basically be like, oh, I got a scratch, heal me now. Like, so she pops in and out.
They fall a lot more into the martial and roguish archetypes with a little bit of like the kind of arcane side of magic. So right now there's like 2 artificers, a barbarian, a ranger, and a rogue, essentially. And I think that stems from, they come from we used to play 3.5, and that's a very numbers crunchy system. And primarily the gameplay that we had with that previous DM was very much like combat centric, like 8 hours of combat, like at a table, which is not, it's enjoyable for some people, but as far as I've queried them as like what they are actually looking from their tabletop games, even they don't actually like combat that much. So I'm trying to kind of incorporate a lot more of the theater of the mind stuff.
It's also very final too. Like if you go down, you don't really have that person there to raise you, you're done. So if you're constantly in that situation, you're basically playing a game of peril.
And that's a hard thing for new players.
Yeah,
that's actually why he uses my character, because I was a solo like player. She's like, her power is like really like up here, like it's like regeneration level. So like they could like get cut in half, and she could be like, boom, you're done. So he kind of did that because as like a fail safe. Like she's not supposed to be there all the time, so that way they actually do combat. But even if they got into dire situations, she's basically like there to be like, oh, you're fully good again, because he didn't want them to just always be panicked that they could never do it again.
That is a crutch. I'm going to let you know right now,
Yes.
and it's something they're leaning on pretty heavily. Just
She's gone already.
She's gone. She was in the first like three things, but now that they're actually like going out and not
They're out of
like
training mode.
Yeah, okay.
that's why she disappears periodically. So that way she's not always there. But it's basically because like in the beginning they were too scared to do anything. Like they were like,
Gotcha.
because their DM would literally be like, it's me versus you. Like I win every time. That's why they were scared to get into combat. That's why he
Thank
needed
God you're
somebody
not
there
like
who was
that.
basically like,
That was my
no
first
matter what
thing.
happens, you know,
Characters,
you'll be
you know.
fine. Like I'm not trying to kill you. You literally have a character so that you know I'm not just trying to end you.
Yeah. Okay, so you may be putting together a game that's a bit too advanced for them. I'll just let you know that right now.
Oh yeah.
But don't give up. You may need to scale some of it back because they don't sound experienced enough for it. But still take stuff from this and you know, flesh it out, keep advancing it, because at the end of the day, you're still getting something out of this. You're still getting your own chops. You know, as okay, well that didn't work out great. Let me think about this or whatever have you. And maybe it's something you can revisit later on with a different group. Or maybe when this group gets a little bit more advanced in their own mindset and can revisit this, you know, later on.
Yeah, they're even taking a break right now. One of the other players is like making his own, like he's taking from the book. Which book?
I'm not DMing right now. I'm taking like a little bit of a break as I started another job, but we're running Strixhaven.
Yeah.
And I'm
So they're
I'm back
taking a
as
break from the campaign to do a secondary, like somebody else is DMing and they're
Gotcha.
kind of like exploring more, which is a good sign that they're enjoying it.
Yeah, and I also agree with you. I think this probably, I know that a lot of the work that I have been doing is actually like almost trauma healing.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I do think that they also do need to mature, and I'm not like, oh my god, you guys don't get it. I'm honestly just happy that they're really engaging with my game, even if it's like occasionally, you know, snippets here.
Yeah, there you go.
One of the things that I think I really loved was when they started kind of connecting all these pieces about this like dragon subplot that I have going. They started like cooking on like the theories, and it consumed them for like 3 hours.
Then,
right?
then you know you've got something to work with. If they are extrapolating that, and they're talking out of character, like, you know, especially if you know they're talking about it in a game, because if you find that they're talking about it like outside a game and they're like hitting each other in Messenger or whatever have you, you've got a hook. You've done something good. You can pat yourself on the back. It's just figuring out a way to start replicating that at that point in that game. So yeah, kudos to you. Then it sounds like you're on the
they're
right
coming
path.
along.
Yeah.
Yeah. Afterwards, every single
Slowly.
time, like they'll end at 6 and not stop talking about it until 8.
Cool. All good signs.
Yeah.
So did you want to move on to the next
Yeah,
one?
do we want to, okay, so,
I think
we
we-
kind of
yeah,
talked about the
Yeah.
morality stuff. Do we want to keep going into the scarcity stuff?
I mean, we kind of talked about
Kinda
that.
talked about
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
And we've got about 20 minutes.
Let's just skip the last one then.
So, and this may be super helpful. It's about character connections and emotional payoff. So it sounds like you're kind of on that track already, making things more meaningful. Let's talk about how to make those a little more.
Well, you said you had interviews with your with your players. A way that you might be able to, because I've done this a bunch, is retroactively write something into their background specifically for them, and it does two things. One, it shows them you're focusing on them. Like if they got a little sliver from the DM, and you know he or she said, "I'm going to give you a little something here off the side, specific to you," whatever it ends up being. And then the other thing is, well, that's another hook that you can put into the game that when you do something that they're vested in on that level, they're going to look to that and go like, well, I get that something else has happened over here. I want to go take a look at this because this guy asked me for, like, maybe it's an NPC or something. They ask for help specifically, you know. So then you give them their side quest, you know, or you know, like in Mass Effect, you get invited to the party in Part 3 eventually, and everything starts coming to a head with everybody getting drunk and having a good time, and it could be a good thing. It could be just, hey, you did, I just want to let you know that, you did this over here, and I got a windfall, or maybe something helping out with my party. This isn't much, but here. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, or maybe it could be something brand new. Like, you never really know. Like in my case, I ran a Pathfinder game briefly. And I swear to God, I had a goblin in the game who was wearing a pot for a helmet. This player went off. He's like, we have to adopt this guy.
Yes.
He is great. He is fantastic. And they're like, why? Because he has a pot on his head. It's great. And he just started going off because something about that tickled him. He loved it. It's like he wanted that guy for a mascot. And that guy was
Totally derailed things.
It did, but I did something that player bought into immediately. So I've got to start fleshing this out. This has to be a thing somewhere. Like, sometimes when you describe something, sometimes when you do something in a game, it invokes that response from a player, and then you got something. So build directly from that. It could be something. It could be something cheesy.
End up, started out very flat and ended up having to be fleshed out because somebody wanted to keep them around.
Yeah, I had a character at one point who
Doug still doesn't have a last name.
So there's Doug. I had a character.
He was there from episode 1.
Yes, he was. In the vampire game, I had this character. She was introduced because they were going to, what was the pawn shop's name?
I don't remember. Call it Easy Pawn or something.
No.
Night Pawn.
But it was a pawn shop that I was running because they were investigating something.
Are you talking about Shannon?
Shannon, yes. And Shannon tends to talk like this. And so because I put a voice to that character, oh honey, you just don't know what you've got going for you. One player immediately turned it off. Just like, oh no, she's gross. And the rest of the group.
because she was coming
We
on
loved
to
her.
her.
Yeah, the rest of the group
She was coming onto the
loved
Nosferatu.
her. And this guy, one of the players, he's like, I see lots of things for this character because she owned a pawn shop. And that was it. She had this voice in a pawn shop, and so then from there on out, like every so often, I was doing, this character with this voice that sounded like she had smoker's throat, from Jersey, and they loved her. So she would pop in every so often with little nuggets of information or whatever have you, and sometimes that's all it takes, and when you've got that. You can do all kinds of things, like they can come and provide a little piece of information to help, or like in this case, the apocalypse, something bad can happen to them, and it's going to mean something to them because they found something super interesting in that particular character, and they want to come to help.
That was an especially interesting situation because, like you kind of mentioned, she was meant to be an NPC with a purpose for a specific player, and that player didn't want anything to do with her, but somebody else felt an attachment to her, and so she kind of had to switch gears and was useful to the rest of the party in different ways. So
That happened 2 plots actually for that person.
yeah.
It's actually really cool because I kind of already have some of that going. I don't think I've done a good job myself at recognizing the moments when, or at least keeping track of the moments and capitalizing on them when people start engaging with stuff. But I do see that actually a lot in a lot of things that I'm going to do, and I think I actually have a good section coming up for them because they're going to My World's China. Their current quest is basically they saved an exiled runaway master inventor genius from the Elven Empire. They're fleeing to one of the players in his backstory. He owns a laboratory, it's not going to be a laboratory when he gets there because he didn't submit to me his backstory. But
Oops.
but it'll be an interesting, fun gameplay element when they get there, and there is no laboratory. And then they're also trying to deal with. They saved the little baby dragon, who's going to be part of like the main plot line that they latched onto.
He was the one I would live and die for.
Yeah, and he is currently his conscious is melded with their airship, which is also a sentient airship. So they're like, shit, we can't solve this where we're at right now. Let's go back to where actually all of my players' backstories converge. And I think it will be good on me to start recognizing those moments where I set up maybe something random that has absolutely no intent to do anything.
Just make like a quick note, like
yeah.
did this with this character. Everybody seemed like almost like a journalist. Everybody seemed to enjoy it. Did this, and this, and then
That's
maybe
what you need
reference
the
back.
little screen for.
Yeah, they an example is I ran like a Christmas one shot for them that was like totally unrelated, and they the bartender was Mr. Martini from the Christmas show.
All of the other reindeer.
All of the other
I don't know
reindeer.
if
So
you
he's
ever saw
like
that.
he's just like a little penguin that is like a con businessman. I had him be the bartender in this
Nice.
and they latched on to him. He was like their main quest giver. They were like, we fucking love Mr. Martini, and I was like, all right, he's gonna become your cook on your airship now in the
Nice.
main game.
Yeah.
Like you're just gonna
Perfect.
pop up out of
Yeah.
nowhere, and you're gonna have Mr. Martini over here because you engage with him. So I think a lot of the challenges for me will be to start identifying those areas where
Recognizing
they really are like, oh my god, this. I'm engaged here.
Yeah.
And then mold that also into better things because I've seen it a little bit. Like they have they saved an individual that was like a side thing. It really was actually not intended to be somebody that I envisioned them saving at all. I introduced a player. Basically, they fell out of basically an escape pod, right? And they crashed into like the underside of this island, and the rocks fell down, and that was it. And then later, I had them come across somebody that was crushed by rocks, and they were like, oh no! And they didn't even realize that the rocks that crushed him were the rocks that, because the player got introduced, but they saved him, and now he's just kind of sitting around in a wheelchair that they built for him on this airship. And I haven't done anything with him, but they haven't done anything with him either yet. So there's
just
opportunity there,
rolling
right? He's at least a crew member that they have that's unique, but maybe there's some options to like expand.
You could have him like have gotten word from his family about something and have him like bring this problem to your players, and then they can kind of evolve a more of a relationship with this guy to
Yeah.
try and help him. Something like, I don't know.
But the key thing here, with like keeping this back to the apocalypse thing, is you're going to want to strip away some of that. Like give them moments where they don't have their ship. Give them moments where they don't have the cleric. It doesn't have to be all the time, but you want to put them in that peril where they realize, oh, this really sucks, because
Think outside the box.
we're so used to having this. Yeah, so now maybe you have to travel overland, and have to take the long way. Now maybe you have to worry about rations. Like because the players are very new, it sounds like, as far as role playing is concerned.
Yeah.
Not the crunch, but role playing. Find little bits to start putting the screws to them. Story wise, obviously you're not doing it because you're trying to be offensive. You're wanting to get into the moment, and then start doing that, and then maybe start building to a big moment, right? And then in that moment, strip almost everything away from them. Put them in a situation where maybe they have one weapon, or one guy has all of his armor but none of his weapons. The guy has a weapon, none of his armor, and you're in this like Skyrim moment where you have to run into a room and put whatever is on, and and it's like it ends up being like patchwork leather, for the heavy fighter. It's like ugh, but it's all you have, right? So you put them in moments where they don't have everything, and they got to fight to get it back. So that way, now everything means a little bit more.
Or breaking down the morality too when they're desperate for stuff like that. Now they got to decide, well, if I'm taking this, am I stealing it? Is that bad? Is that good?
Yeah.
Is it
It's
gonna
for
cause
me.
problems
It's
for
to
someone
help
else?
me.
Yep.
I'm not trying to be a thief.
You can even
just trying to
pull.
survive.
Are you familiar with the Mandalorian?
Yeah.
Okay. You can even pull Cobb Vanth on them.
Oh, how he's got armor that didn't belong to him.
Your main fighter, ends up losing his armor. Maybe he ends up getting something that's decent, but it's not
the full, yeah.
But this guy, this peasant warrior over here, the only guy they've got to defend their town in this hellscape that you've left out, has his armor on, and he's the only thing that's able to hold back some of these hordes, because he's proficient enough with the sword, but that armor gives him the edge. What do they do? Does he just go up and murder the guy and and take the armor back and take a hit to his alignment?
Yep.
And explain to him that was a very evil act, because now you're
without any defenses.
or do you engage in a conversation with him and say, hey, like, we've got to figure this out? And there you go. There's another, kind of apocalyptic trope there that you can work with, because this guy's got your armor. And then you could occasionally, taking that a couple steps further, that guy became kind of a legendary local hero, in his own right, but he wearing that armor. So this guy comes over here, now he's basically, what is it, false honor, like from the military.
Yeah.
Like, so.
Stolen valor.
Stolen valor.
Yeah.
So now people start seeing that armor and they're like, hey,
you're not
him. And so now he's like, but this was originally my armor. That's stolen valor, buddy. He's like over there. And so now he's got problems relating in another town, because that guy's rep was really good, and it looks like he just ganked his armor, and he's just proudly walking it into town. That guy's the thief. We're gonna, maybe you start that particular scene off with him getting waylaid and his armor stolen again. But this time it's taken by the sheriff, who's holding it because he thinks he legitimately stole it.
Yeah. I'm stealing that. I'm stealing that for sure.
By all means, that's what these workshops are for. Like, I did something.
I want to hear what happens.
Yeah. I did something like that. Like, I was a friend of mine who is brand new, it's a DM as well. She was running for a group of all women, that all of her friends and family, all girls that wanted to role play, and she was. Game system aside, she was coming up with this. She had this great idea. I was really surprised for a first-time game master. And she's like, "Well, I've got this, and it's based off of like this." And I was like, "Okay, well, great." I said, "You got a great premise." I said, "But why don't you try this instead of being direct, be indirect? Why don't you make them all?" The hook was that they were. It was kind of like a whodunit murder kind of thing. Like somebody ends up dying, and they all kind of get fingered for it. It's like, well, take this one step further. Why don't you do this? Since they're all females and you can all relate to this on this level, the guy that who originally gets murdered, he was fooling around with all of them in some way, and none of them knew it. So now they show up at this, at the house. He's murdered. Now they're all looking at one another, and then they realize none of them had anything to do with it. It was somebody else who was scorned. Now they all have a reason to be together. But are they really? Yeah. Because they've all got a knife proverbially in their back somehow, because there was some frenemies. Infidelity. Yeah, frenemies, exactly. And so, and she looked at it, she goes, "I like that." And I was like, "Go for it. Yeah. It's all yours. Just let me know what happens." And so she took that. I'm bouncing all these ideas. I like that. It's for somebody with my experience. Kind of going back to running games, I love doing that for people, and helping them, give them some little nuggets that they can take and run with, because I really didn't have that when I was coming up. To your point, my game master was the type of person. I know I'm a little off topic here. He was when we'd all start talking out of character. This guy was psycho. When we'd all start talking out of character, which happens in every game. Yeah. Right. Every game. Yeah. He would take his pencil and with his thumb, he'd sit there and start whittling away at the top of it, and until eventually, someone would notice, because we were all not role playing, we were chatting, and he'd have a lead exposed that far, because he would just sit there and stare at us all intently, just like we were wrecking his entire day. And at one point, and as a kid, they took my, because we were all playing two characters apiece in a D&D campaign, a second ed. This is way, way, way back. And so I had a character packet of my own, so I had my own special sheets and everything that I could write these characters up on. And so the group ganged up on my characters and killed me because they didn't like me in general. So they killed both my characters. And so he, in a moment of glee, pretended to rip them twice before ripping them directly in front of me. That's the type of game master. I was only 16, I think, at the time.
Shit sticks.
What the fuck is with these DMs?
Don't do that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people get power, and then it just
Well, they view that as
it
power.
could go, it goes
yeah.
a lot of bad ways. I mean, my DM TPK'd the party, made it my character's fault that the party got TPK'd, brought us all back, but forcibly changed me to a paladin, and he knows I fucking hate playing paladins.
Oh.
See, that's not fun.
And I was like, fine, I'll roll with this. But then he started going like way too far in like everybody else's enjoyment, and then that's when I confronted him about everything. I was like, dude, you got to change. Like you're not serving
We
what
don't wanna
the
play
spirit of
with
this
you
game is.
Right, yeah.
And like you wonder why people don't want to fucking show up to your game.
Yeah.
Like it's because of you, man. And at that point, it was just like, I'm done. I'm not gonna play for. I'm not gonna be your DM. And I was like, great, fine. We all left and
Do me
played
the
our own
favor,
stuff.
please.
Yeah. So-
But back on topic real quick. Are you familiar with Ravenloft?
No.
We got 3 minutes.
Okay.
So let's wrap
Is
it
that
up.
like a game
It's not
system or a setting?
apocalyptic. No, it's a setting for D&D.
Setting?
I would strongly advise you get like the, because you can get the reprint of the main box set, even the second ed. Obviously not use it for the rules, use it for the setting, use
Yeah.
it for the dialogue that they write, grab some of the modules and whatnot.
Okay.
The idea behind Ravenloft is they call it the demi-plane of dread. And
Perfect.
it's this gothic fantasy setting that is like you've got D&D, high fantasy, whatever
Yeah.
have you. It's like this pocket realm off in the middle of nightmarish areas of the planes of existence. And the realm itself is actually semi-sentient. And what it will do is, like when it finds somebody with that, it doesn't work off of level. It works off of just like their intent. Like when it finds somebody evil or it has that malice intent, and if they're powerful enough, the shadows of Ravenloft, well, that's what it's called, the shadows of this demi-plane of dread, will eventually envelop them wherever they're at, and it brings them to this realm. And they get, if they're powerful enough in being, they'll get their own little realm.
Like
But
a
it's
pocket
this-
in Raven. Okay.
Right, but it's this warped kind of Stranger Things kind of upside down realm. Like it may be fantasy, right? But it's going to reflect their own evil, their own passions, and whatever. And it's super creepy. It was super successful for D&D for a while. While it's not apocalyptic, I would highly advise you grab some of that stuff and just read what they put into it. Like the descriptions of how it kind of came to be, and just start molding some of that into your final plane. Because I think, because everybody who put into that, they were already experienced writers by that point through D&D. But you'll be able to pull some of that off and not only find out like how you can vocalize that, maybe how that might play out, like just take some of those tropes just from the various realms and just kind of seed that in there. Like are you familiar with, oh goodness, now I'm losing my train of thought. He was Vecna.
Oh, Vecna?
Vecna from D&D.
Yeah.
He had his own realm there for a while.
Okay.
Vecna's an old NPC. He goes all the way
super
back.
old.
Yeah. It was originally formed from Baron von Stratovich, which was basically it was their version of Dracula. And so if you think of just Dracula high-level overview, his realm was like a direct reflection of that.
Okay.
And it was super creepy, really well done. I would advise you to take a look at that and kind of mold that in there. And if you really want apocalyptic, go get Dark Side. Another old D&D setting that they've actually never reprinted, but you can go to their Dungeon Masters Guild .com online, and you can get the original book reprinted.
Okay.
I actually did that. It's actually wonderful. Again, don't worry about the rule system.
Oh, I don't mind.
It doesn't
Steal.
directly
Yeah.
translate over to 5e because it was several systems ago. But again, if you're looking for apocalyptic, perfect. Magic in this world has stripped almost every living thing. So everything is almost very barren. Bone has become a very quantifiable resource for armor, weapons, so on and so forth. Water is very scarce, so on this barren world. And anybody who has magic, you're actually pulling the life force from the planet. So you're making the planet and your surrounding environment die.
Killing it, yeah.
And so it's very Mad Max,
Yeah.
but in a D&D way.
And that's
it's
called Dark
It's called
Side?
Dark Sun.
Dark Sun.
Dark Sun.
Okay.
So I would highly advise you to pull directly from those two. One, because they're D&D, so obviously easy buy-in. But two, they are so rich settings. And unfortunately, Dark Sun, people hate on it because it has slavery involved in it. People, they're like, oh, but I mean, again, if you're trying to do apocalypse,
Sometimes
it
it's
happens.
like, how do you expect it to be a dark theme if there's no dark themes in
Bingo.
it?
Right.
Yeah.
But that was one of the big things that permeated in the setting. But it's again, just pull from it. Like if you look, even if you just pull up Dark Sun and you look at the pictures, you're going to immediately know what I'm talking about. You're going to look at that and go like, oh, that's great. It's just blasted environment. And I think if you pull from those, just like visual elements and story elements, like how those sort of things played out. Like again, maybe they wander into a part of your realm that if they start casting magic, like they start watching a tree die. Maybe it doesn't matter at first because they don't realize it, but now their magic missiles, they're starting to eat up crops nearby, the only viable food that some of these people have. That's going to make them think, oh,
Teach them restraint.
we got to figure out a better way to deal with some of these monsters. We can't just, even little spells like magic missile or charm or whatever have you, you start eating away at the environment around them. That's going to cause a moral conundrum.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well,
So
thank you.
I think
Well, it was
we're.
helpful.
I think
Yeah.
we're at.
Oh, absolutely helpful.
So
Well, it's been a fun conversation.
yeah, that's
Thanks
ultimately
for participating.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
for
is
sure.
that is what we have these panels for. We have another one coming up on Sunday at 1, specifically for characters.
Yep.
So
Character
it works very
development.
much the same way, but it's like, pitch us your characters or ideas that you might have, and we'll help kind of workshop that and help you figure out like where to go with it. It doesn't matter if it's a character or a player character or an NPC.
Sweet.
And obviously we get into player discussions too, like, well, my player's playing this type of character, and so
Yeah.
we hash those out too.
And you said you guys have a YouTube?
Yep.
We do,
Sweet.
yes. You can
Lost
find
Stripes
Lost
Gaming.
Stripes Gaming on YouTube, but you can also find us on Facebook as Lost Stripes Gaming. Specifically, our games are on Twitch. They're all aired live. So it's twitch.tv at Lost Stripes Gaming.
Sweet.
All right.
I'll check it out.
Cool. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for
thanks,
coming.
guys.
Enjoy the convention.
Yeah, you too.